Jewish Channel's Week in Review. The new head of the Reform movement, a former Israeli president, heads to jail, how the American Jewish community is memorializing the victims of the Itamar massacre, and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Week in Review. Hello, and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. The Reform movement has a new leader. Rabbi Richard Jacobs of the Westchester Reform Temple in Scarsdale, New York, has been tapped to succeed Rabbi Eric Yaffe as president of the Union for Reform Judaism. Yaffe has announced he'll step down in 2012. Jacobs has served at his current synagogue since 1991 and has been widely regarded as among the most influential Reform rabbis in the country. He also has significant interest in the field of dance. He's currently pursuing a doctorate in ritual dance at New York University and is a former dancer and choreographer for a Jewish modern dance company, the Avodah Dance Ensemble. A former president in the news this week is former Israeli President Moshe Katsav. Katsav was sentenced to 7 years in prison after being found guilty of rape and sexual assault of his subordinates. Katsav has also been ordered to pay a total of $35,000 to his victims. Katsav's conviction has been controversial not only because of his political position, but also because of his identification with the modern Orthodox Jewish community in Israel. But a separate controversy is coming out of that modern Orthodox or religious Zionist Jewish community in Israel. If ordered to help evacuate parts of the West Bank as part of a peace deal, only 9% of religious Zionists think soldiers from their community should comply with the order, according to a survey conducted last week. In an American story of government orders and the modern Orthodox community, an ousted rabbi suing his former congregation has issued a subpoena to Google to reveal the identities of his anonymous critics on the internet. Rabbi Mordechai Tendler was the subject of many rumors regarding his sexual conduct with congregants several years ago, and was expelled by the Orthodox rabbinic group, the Rabbinical Council of America, after an internal investigation, and eventually removed from his synagogue post in Rockland County, New York. Tendler is now suing the synagogue and has subpoenaed Google for the identities of his anonymous internet critics, including Jewish whistleblower and Jewish survivors. In the interest of full disclosure, I received a similar legal complaint from Tendler while operating a blog in 2005. But while the modern Orthodox world is facing a lot of drama this week, the story of ultra-Orthodox poverty became somewhat clearer. The poverty rate among the ultra-Orthodox in Israel has risen by 50% in the past decade, according to the governor of the Bank of Israel, which he said was mainly due to lack of participation in the workforce. He said that Arab poverty in Israel has increased a similar amount in the past decade. For Israel overall, though, there is much uncertainty at the moment, as continued unrest in Libya and other Muslim countries nearby dominate headlines. In addition to the recent murders in the West Bank settlement of Itamar, violence has erupted again along the border with Gaza, and reports out of the West Bank revealed that the local government was naming a city square after a terrorist, Dalal Mughrabi. The U.S. State Department has stepped in on that latter issue and issued a statement last week declaring, "We are disturbed by reports that a town square in the West Bank has been renamed in honor of Dalal Mughrabi, who was a terrorist responsible for an attack that killed 35 Israelis in 1978. We condemn this commemoration of terrorism and have conveyed our deep concern about this incident to senior officials in the Palestinian Authority and have urged them to address it. We underscore that all parties have an obligation to end any form of incitement." On the story of the murders in Itamar, two very different events commemorated the victims here in the United States, as Christian Needham reports.
A packed house attended last week's community memorial service at Kehileth Jeshurun for the slain members of the Fogel family in Itamar. Among the speakers was the synagogue rabbi Haskell Lookstein, who told the audience what he thought of the perpetrators of the crime.
Savages, beasts, monsters, and we will never forget.
And since it was the eve of Purim, Lookstein put it in biblical terms.
On this fast day, Ta'anit Esther, we pledge to fulfill this command. We will remember the murderers of the Fogel family, the murderers of Ruth, Udi, and 3 of their children, Elad, Yoav, and the baby, Hadass. Their murder by a modern-day Amalek.
Israel's ambassador to the United Nations then updated the crowd on the effort for wider political condemnation of the murders.
This is a time for moral clarity. As my mission wrote in a letter to the United Nations Security Council last weekend, all nations and decent people must clearly condemn these savage acts of terrorism without attempts at justification or equivocation.
But Conference of Presidents lead executive Malcolm Hoenlein held out little hope for a UN response.
Nowhere is the hypocrisy to which the Jewish people in the state of Israel are subjected more visible on a daily basis than at the United Nations, where Israel is condemned, but those who murder ruthlessly are forgiven and forgotten.
Reverend Jacques de Graaf highlighted how the tragedy transcended both religion and ethnicity.
It is understandable to talk about it in Jewish terms or Israeli terms, but it is a crime against humanity, and we must speak out, and we must speak with clarity, and we must stand up right now.
But Hoenlein said media attention to the murders has been far too quiet and even insulting to the victims.
When the media shifts the focus from the perpetrator to the victim, when they denigrate the murdered to justify the murderers, when they ignore and just put a small notice in the middle pages, then what price is there? Where is the outrage? Where is the indignation? Where is the humanity in the face of this vicious attack?
To hear more about the local outrage over the murders in Itamar, please tune into the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable: Iowa Optimum Cable Channel 291, Time Warner Cable Channel 528, RCN Channel 268, Verizon Fios Channel 900, and Cox Cable Channel 1. For more information, visit tjctv.com.